thing that we are going to do is we are going to see that how we can enforce one API key per consumer. So let me write this down. So enforce one API key per consumer. So that's what we're going to do now, and we'll see how this happens manually, and then we're going to automate this task through Kong. So let's hit the road. So the first thing I'm going to check is how many API keys are currently active. Right, so this is the command to check that. We've used it before, and we just have one API key, which is fine. Now the next thing that we are going to do is we are going to create a script, right? I have the script already prepared. I'm going to run the script, and in this script, let's look at the script line by line. So the first line over here, which is the bin bash, this command actually tells the system to run the script using a bash shell, right? This is basically a Unix shell environment where this script is essentially going to run. The second thing that we are doing is, remember, this is familiar to us. So the consumer is the API that we've created, which is essentially our test user, and this essentially stores the consumer name, which is the API user, in a variable. Now, the third thing, again, a command that we are familiar with, this essentially is finding the oldest key, which in our case, since we've made sure that we just have one active key, this essentially keeps a pointer, remembers basically the old key, right? So the variable old key ID essentially now holds the ID of the oldest API key. Now the next thing that we are doing is we are just running this loop and just making sure that we don't have any old key, and we essentially are deleting essentially all the old keys, right? So you're just making sure that any old key, if it's there in the system, that's deleted. But in our case, this is the only one key. There are no multiple keys. So if you just look at one and you look at this script, it will essentially just make sure that there is always one key and not multiple keys. So this is the primary thing that we're trying to make sure, is that there is always one key per API. And the final thing is that we are basically essentially calling the Kong admin API to create the new API key, and that's about it. And then we essentially just make sure that this is enforced. So let's put it in action. All right, so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to now run the previous command which we had to create a new key. And we are going to call the admin library and see first how many API keys are there, right? So this tells me that there is only one API key, which is correct. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm essentially now going to create a new key, right? So I will use the Kong API admin, and I will call this to create the new key. And you can see that now this command is successfully executed. So technically, I should have now two keys. Now let's see how many keys do I essentially have. So for that, I will run this command. And this now essentially tells me that there are two keys. Right? Now, since I have not automated that script, but I'm going to call it, and I'm going to see if that script is correctly working. And I will just simply paste this and see. Interesting. It says permission denied. So let's troubleshoot this. So let's just give it the permission to run with full access. And let's see if it is running. Yep, now it's running. And now let's see that we have one single API key. Okay, there is some problem. Okay, let's debug this. Okay, looks like this is working, and now I will try and create a new API key, and then I'm going to check how many keys are active.